I love, I really, really like studying mythology because in the studying of mythology, you can really see the similarities between different cultures, even cultures that you would think have no similarities or links to them. And you can also see the different roles that some of these societies, especially surviving ones, and by surviving, I mean they were able to keep a majority of their culture, they were able to keep a majority of their art, or a good portion, rather, of their art, of their literature, specifically about the gods. That's the big one, right? Because that, I think, your belief, the different beliefs about your gods and about the energies that make up your culture is what drives the magic of particular cultures. For instance, and for example, the Indians and the Irish, the Celts specifically, they both, very interestingly enough, right? You have the Indians and you have the Irish who differentiate themselves from their ancient counterparts. Um, some people would say this is not how they see it, but you can tell. If you pay attention. Um, I'm trying to, anyway, I'm trying to disclaim, but let me just say it. Like for Indians, right? The current Indians, they don't speak Hindu. And as for them, Hindu is an ancient language that cannot be touched or used to create. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hindu. Hindu is their current language. There is a language before that that can't be touched. Damn, now I make it sound like I wasn't prepared to talk about this, even though it did come like a spur of a moment. But I've been thinking about this for quite some time, and I actually have studied this. It just apparently is eluding me right now. But anyway, let's say the Irish and the Celts, because this is much easier to establish my theory on. The Irish people distinguish themselves as different than the Celts. I've even seen videos and studies that have been organized and done that literally will test the blood of the current Irish people and say, well, you're only 2% Celt, which means that there is a total discretion between their ancient culture that they still claim today and use today. And a lot of people also, what is the right word for me to use? Gatekeep. But according to science, they are not even those people. It's like with the ancient Egypts, right? You have the ancient Egypts. You have the Egyptians in that land of Egypt, in that land of Egypt. Now you have a group of people who are in America who claim, "Oh, that's my land. That's where my people came from." But the Egyptians there are saying, "No, we're here. This is our land." Um, but they don't have any links to the ancient people, just like with the Irish. The Irish don't have any links, any blood links to those ancient people that whose culture they claim. The Indians that are here today that do the Hindu, I wish I could tell you exactly what the fuck I'm talking about on this, but it's similar with that as well. That is kind of eluded me. And because of that, I don't want to really post this video, but I'm going to post it anyway. Because it's the internet, it's 2023 AD, and that's what people do. That's what people do. Even if they don't have all the facts, they still talk about it and they still take action. So let me not be discluded. Otherwise, I'll just be sitting in the midst and the rubble of piles of, well, somebody else's feces on me. Like, for instance, there is a curse, international curse that goes on for people who believe in magic, right? International curse that people worship and maintain every Saturday and Sunday. And people act like it's not affecting anyone. But there are loads of people all over the world who are having significant issues, such as not being able to build a home in particular lands. Every time they build up something there, it gets wiped the fuck out, like it says in the Bible. There are people who aren't able to claim their ancient lands because there are people there right now who are claiming that space, and they're like, well, there's you don't have anything to do with it. It's not like Russia and Ukraine, which I was just talking to a Ukrainian yesterday. Ukrainian yesterday, in case you didn't hear me say that correctly. And they were like, yeah, we hate Russians. And I'm like, but you sound just like a Russian. What the fuck? I thought she was a Russian, which is why the topic even came up, because they have such a similar accent. And they're like, yeah, at one point we were unified. We were one state. And then because our philosophies and our differences became so different and so great of a difference, we decided to change that. Now Putin is trying to put it back together, and we don't want that. I definitely lost my place. I didn't smoke at all. I definitely lost my place about what I was, why I even brought up the Ukraine situation. I think it was just to compare it and to say, that's not what's happening in these places. It's not like we're trying to separate ourselves. It's that some people were literally taken from out of their spaces where they were. And now there is this big double-edged sword on them, because every time they try to claim that space, someone from out of that space comes up and says, bitch, this is not your place anymore, so don't say anything about this place. And because they're there, possessions is 9 cents of the law. A law of understanding and comprehension, at least. Yeah, maybe. I think it's just funny. People don't get it. Like, even if I did have clear words in this particular moment, people still wouldn't get it. Like, a lot of what I just said was absolutely clear. Like what I just said about the Irish and the Celtics. The white Irish that you see there in that land, that is not the same people as the Celtic people, which they claim the culture of. Do you understand? They claim the literature and the cultural aspects of these people. The reason why I even was bringing Indians up is because Indians and Celtics, they have a link between their cultures within mythology. Okay? Danu and Indra, right? Those two were actually siblings, according to mythology. And the rivalry was so great that they divided themselves, or they were naturally divided by the energies and the way that they utilized their energies. But then the people of those cultures made it even greater by the way that they interpreted those stories, as well as the way that they interacted with each other. I wonder if racism came from them, from these two cultures together. Because a lot of other mythologies are actually derived from that and link to each other through those two characters. Danu, which is sometimes considered as a part of the Morrigan, and Indra, who is considered the king of the heavens and king of kings. A very exciting character who was actually considered doer of good and then became someone in Indian culture who no longer deserved praise, which is also very interesting. As far as my research, I could only find one mantra for the Lord Indra, whereas there are so many tens of 20s of mantras for other deities. But for the Lord Indra, there is only one that I could find in most stories that is because he needed to be limited in the amount of worship that he was able to receive because his ego couldn't tolerate it. Which then makes me think, of course, about the European mythology, who they were so strange, I think. Well, not really. I think that they were on some bullshit. But that's just my prejudice and my way of thinking. Because the way that they end up telling their stories, they even spell Egyptian wrong, right? And then the other white Asians, the Russians, the way that they tell their stories, I don't even think they even link them by name. They just kind of let it all hang and act like there's no link at all, except by, I think, by the names Aesir's and Veneers.